Good morning, role players. It is a lovely Monday morning on the 20th. You didn't want to do this. Now you want to do this? Oh, goodness gracious. Listen to this little man. It is a wonderful morning. I hope everyone is doing okay. Today I'm joined by Willow from the RPG Goblin. Willow runs a podcast much like this one.
No goblin.
She can be a goblin.
No!
Anyways, every week they bring on a new guest and explore the games they love or created. I read that right from their page. Willow, if you're listening to this, thank you again for coming on to the podcast. It was wonderful to listen to. It was wonderful to get to talk to you. And everyone, I hope that you enjoy this conversation that we have. Sit back, relax, grab yourself a cup of coffee, or just, continue doing hard at work. Or continue doing not so hard at work, whatever you like to do. And enjoy the sweet, sweet sounds of ranting and and raving that Willow and I do. You run a podcast like I run a podcast, which is so cool because I love talking with other people who run podcasts, especially in the role-playing community, because there's so many struggles that people don't talk about when it comes to role-playing. Mm-hmm. And there are so many struggles that people don't talk about when it comes to podcasting, and I can talk to you about it and finally get everything off of my chest about what sucks about it, but maybe I shouldn't start off with that.
No, it's great. No. But like that's so true though. Like I didn't expect running a podcast to take as much work as it does.
It takes so much work.
It takes a lot of work, especially if you're like trying to promote it as well and like, manage socials and things like that. Like running the podcast like takes a lot of work, but like it's pretty manageable. And then when you add like all the other stuff on top of it, it's like, oh, this is a job.
Yeah, it really is. And like you have to like really be on top of it. Because last week I'm so mad at myself. I've always created backups of my projects just to be on the safe side. I've done it for every single project I've done so far. Every single episode I have a backup for it. But last week I was like, I don't really think I need to do a backup. I don't know why I didn't. I was just like, I don't need to. I'm just going to go get some food with my son. I guess I was really hungry. And poor Mr. Ray's episode. Mr. Ray is from $2 Creature Feature, and he's the keeper for that podcast, that actual play podcast. And I had him on. And when I went to go make doubly sure everything was good to go for the next day, I found out that my project file had got corrupted. And nothing got uploaded like it was supposed to. And I was
heartbreaking.
I was so mad because I wasn't mad. I was just tired because I just got off of a 12-hour shift that day. I came home. I dealt with my son. Like I handled my son and fed him and got him to bed. And around 8:30 was I finally able to start re-editing the podcast. And I didn't get done because people think that you can just like clip out certain things and be done. No,
it's a process. It takes hours.
It takes so long to do this. Like for me, I spend about 2 to 3 hours editing a podcast.
Yeah, I would say I'm similar too.
Yeah, so it wasn't about. I think it was about. It was about 11 o'clock when I finally got done and was uploading it again, because you also have to do the intro. You also have to do the mid-roll. You also have to do the outro. And I forgot to add in 2 of those things after I had recorded them again.
Oh, no.
And so the last episode that came out, this is going to date me a little bit, but the last episode that just came out, you can hear my mouth breathing. You can hear all these nasty things. I'm so mad at myself.
No.
But it's already out there and it's already getting listens, and I'm just like, oh no. Do I take it down or do I leave it up?
No, I get that so much, and I think the big thing is like sometimes you just have to like take the L, because if you obsessed over making like perfect content, like almost nothing would ever come out. And so in those situations, it's just like sometimes you just have to go with it and be like, hey guys, sorry, like, there was a few issues and I ended up not editing out some stuff because Oh god, I've had that with some guest audio sometimes where it had some issues during the recording, or I didn't notice it until I got to editing it, and there were like crackling or like weird sounds sometimes, and I couldn't edit it all out. And it's like, hey guys, sorry, because I had no idea that was even an issue.
Yeah, it's even worse because if you're out there and you're listening to this and you want to make a podcast, feel free to make a podcast. Please, it's a very fun experience.
Oh,
If
it's
you
great.
love talking with other people, like I love talking with people, and I listen to your podcast, and I know from listening to you that you also like talking to
Well, me
people.
too.
But
Probably a little too much.
there is I feel you. I feel you so much. But there is a whole ass setup between starting the podcast, like from wanting to do, like from the point you say I'm thinking about making a podcast to actually doing the podcast. There's so much you're just not aware of that
hmm
you're not going to be aware of until it becomes a problem.
Yep. You learn as you go. Because actually, the whole thing was saying like you were doing like the backups and stuff. I
Hmm.
actually had a incident happen in the summer. I was I was taking basically the month off, and I was trying to get a bunch of recordings and a lot of editing done, just to
Right.
make sure I had episodes to cover that entire time that I was going to be gone. And so I did like all these recordings, and during that time when I was doing some editing, I had a huge issue happen with my laptop that it ended up deleting two of the recordings from the month. Like straight up, like there was no remnants of it. I couldn't find them at all. They were gone. And I felt like my life was ending at that moment, because it's like I like had this whole plan. I was set up for the entire month. I had these two recordings and they disappeared. But the great thing usually with people in general, but especially the guests that I had on, they were super understanding and were like, "Oh yeah, no, we'll come on again and re-record episodes." It's like, "Thank you so much." And
I
that was like
know.
the whole like that experience was what made me start to make sure to back up every single thing that I do, because I do not want to get stuck again having like several missing recordings just because I forgot to back up my files.
Oh
It's
man.
it's life ending. Well, it's
It
not
is.
actually life ending, but like it feels that way.
It feels like it really does. I cannot tell you how many times I've had to reach out and like do redo an episode of a podcast.
hmm
Also, there have been times where I've talked to someone, like I talked to a person I finally refer to as my husband. His name is Gary. He's one of my best friends in the whole world. And so he and I did this episode, and as I'm listening to the podcast and I'm getting it through, I realize half of the footage is just half of the stuff is just gone.
hmm
It's just
Oh
half of the audio is just gone. I don't know where it is. I don't know where it went. I don't know how I only got half the audio, but I only have half of the audio. So
no.
so if you're also a person interested in doing podcasts, whether it be for role playing or otherwise, you're gonna have to deal with that shit too.
Yep.
Get ready.
It'll be
Don't
fun.
don't let it get you down. The moment it starts getting you down, the moment you're just like, ah, fuck it. It's just no, just oh well. Try to do it again the best you can.
It's all learning opportunities. That's really what it is. Is it's a learning opportunity. Just get past it. Like it sucks,
Mm-hmm.
but you know there's ways to get around it, and it'll suck really heavily in the moment. But usually people are super understanding, and you know they also understand you starting out too, especially if you're a new podcast. Like I'm still within my first year, and I still make plenty of mistakes.
Oh yeah, I just hit episode 24 on my podcast, and I
Woo.
was gone for a year. Like I had
Mhm,
to stop and go on hiatus for a little over a year
mhm.
as I got my life back in order. So I only had for the longest I only had like 13 episodes out, and then that was it. Only now am I hitting episode 25, and and I'm supposed to release on a weekly basis.
How often do you release now?
Still on a weekly
Mhm.
basis.
Oh, so it was just because of that break. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, and that's the thing too, like even then people are understanding because it is like its own job, you know, having to manage a podcast, producing a podcast, doing everything for a podcast. And I know there's quite a few shows that will, you know, do their season and then take a few months off,
Oh yeah.
or like take time off because there's a lot of effort, and sometimes you just need that time to yeah get your life together, or just give yourself like a mental break because it's a lot.
And you know what's wild? Not only is like making a podcast its own secondary job, role playing itself is in itself another job.
It
And
is.
and it doesn't matter if it's tabletop, it doesn't matter if it's MMO role playing, it doesn't matter what kind of role playing it is. You have to spend so much time setting up, building
Mhm.
a story, communicating with other people,
Mhm.
just making sure everyone can get to the same area for the same experience. And man, so my hat's off to you is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you.
Because
Yeah, I
not
mean, like
only you go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, I mean, like right now, like I am in a I am in a position where I can role play, and I have like 2 games that I play pretty much weekly. Sometimes there's weeks off or just things happen, but it is a lot.
It is. It can. Oh man, it can. I had to go from like 20 projects to down to 5
Ooh.
because if I have so many different projects, I will never get to roleplay. And most of my roleplay comes from MMO roleplaying
Mhm. Oh, that's
specifically,
fun.
and that's all pretty much all the roleplay I get to have these days. However, I did get to join a Dark Heresy game recently,
Ooh.
which is pretty fun. My friends have been trying to get me into the Warhammer 40K universe for the longest, and I don't know anything about it. However, they're forcing it upon me, and therefore I am learning it.
Well, I
But
hope it's fun.
I am having fun. I will admit, I am having fun. We've only had our session 0. We've talked about safety tools and our
Mhm.
characters, and we got everything set up. And tomorrow night, hey, I'm super excited. So, Dustin, in the future, if you're listening to this, I hope everything went well and your character didn't die.
We love the threat of character death. Well, I've actually never I've never experienced much like Warhammer 40K or like any of that, but all I know is that it does seem to be a little dangerous, especially since some of the people that I've talked to are like saying that it is it's not dark fantasy, it's grimdark, where it's like,
Right.
super grim and people die and bad things happen and your characters like kind of suck, not necessarily in the sense of your characters suck, but also just suck as people due to the setting. I don't know. That's really all that I've heard about it, but I've heard that it's fun.
So what I have right now is I'm playing this character who's a psyker. A psyker is just like this psychic person.
Mhm.
They have psychic powers, yada yada yada. And whenever they do their psychic mumbo jumbo, I have to roll on a dice table for
Mhm.
D100.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah.
And if you roll exactly 100, your character just gets sucked into the void and you have to start over. Mind you, my GM is cool, and obviously he. I don't want to go into a game for my character to just die because I am a person who loves their characters. I am a person who wants to enjoy a story with the specific character.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So my GM, of course, is gonna be like, "Well, if you roll 100, we'll talk about it. You don't have to
Mhm.
die, thankfully." And again, let this be statement for future Dustin. I hope your character didn't die.
No, that's actually really cool though. I love random tables like that, especially like characters that have abilities that correspond with random tables.
Mm-hmm.
Like wild magic sorcerers, I always thought were one of the coolest sorcerers to play, other than the fact like you never roll on the wild magic table because you only do it when you roll, I think it's a 1 when casting magic.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's a disservice to the subclass because I think it's so cool the fact that, like, yeah, your magic goes berserk, roll on this table. And I've actually seen like people do interpretations or do their own versions of the wild magic sorcerer where basically anytime that they don't get one of those wild magic surges on a 1, that the actual number that you have to roll to get a wild magic surge ups by 1. So like the next one would be, oh, you get it if you roll a 1 or a 2, and then if you pass that you get it if you roll a 1, 2, or 3. And I think that's really fun to actually be able to use that ability, because why do you have a whole random roll table that only gets used when you roll one, like a 1 on a die that like never happens? It's crazy.
I love like you said, I love a good random table, but I'm always worried that the randomness is going to like mess with the other players.
Hmm.
So I don't touch it as much as I want to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that though just comes down to like have a discussion at the table, like, hey, you guys all cool with using like let's say if I wanted wild magic sorcerer as my subclass, would you be cool if that was a prevalent thing in the game? Random stuff could happen, it could affect you, it could affect the story, stuff like that. And as long as they're cool with it, I think it's a really, really fun way to just make a game a little chaotic.
Yeah, I guess session zero is always, the most important
Oh,
tool
absolutely.
for any group, and that includes in MMO role playing. I don't know why. So, do you know a lot about MMO role playing?
No, actually, I haven't really played any like MMOs or anything like that.
So for the people, because people have their characters talk to each other like they're in character and stuff like
Mhm,
that. So we progress through a narrative storyline together. So the big thing is that especially with like random role playing, because you can just get into a random role play with anybody else in the hub.
mhm,
Um, that does not mean that you are out of character communicating with the other player.
mhm,
You could just walk up in character and start having a conversation in character with the other character. I
mhm.
said character 3 times. I'm sorry about that. So one of the things I think would help the MMO role playing community a lot is having the ability to openly, like, making it more, what is it called, normalizing out of character contact before in character contact,
Yeah.
even between like random people.
Mhm. Yeah, just to like kind of like establish rules and like
Hmm.
talk it out because it can be strange to just like, start a role play with a random person online and like there's not really anything set up into place if, it goes weird, I guess.
Those weird,
Well,
yeah.
yeah.
That is the danger of MMO role playing. Let me tell you, because a lot of it, especially when you're in the hubs and people are just role playing, you just have to kind of like jump into it. And
Mhm.
if you don't know what you're doing at, like, if you're not an experienced role player and you see these people and you think it's interesting and cool and you just jump into it, you get wound up in like a really precarious spot somehow,
Oh
and
yeah.
I don't want that for anybody.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I mean, it's and that's where it's just I think important to, like you said, normalize those types of out of character interactions of like, hey, is this cool? Talking about even I mean, I don't know really too much still about the MMO stuff, so I don't know if you're really doing like stories together or if it's just a thing where like your character can interact with other people's characters.
Mhm.
Um, so I don't know if it's something where it's like, hey, you want to have a session zero because you want to set up rules for this role play that you want to do over time and
Mhm.
build a story together or I feel like if it's like kind of like just role play between two characters for like I guess a brief moment, those can be kind of hard to establish, like, hey, let's set this up before we can role play. I still think it would be really like handy and safer to do it that way,
Oh yeah.
but I'm not sure I guess the logistics of it.
Uh, when it comes to MMO role playing, it's just there's always this, because it's like you don't want to message somebody without their permission
Mhm.
in Discord or something like that, or like, how people can be, like, people can get
Yeah.
upset if you message them without like confronting them in a public space first, right?
Mhm.
And that can sort of bleed into the roleplay community for MMO as well, because when it's a tabletop role playing, you're obviously sitting there looking them in the face.
Yeah.
You can say, "Hey, I don't like this subject. Can we please avoid that in our
Mhm.
games?" And you guys can have that conversation as an adult. But in MMOs, there's not only for role player, there's sort of like two or three boundaries you kind of have to cross. You have to get past the characters. So, like, you have to completely ignore the characters. You have to just like wind up and message somebody and hope they're chill with you just being like, "Hey,
Mhm.
can I would like to roleplay with you. Is there anything you don't like before I do that?"
Mhm.
Um, really quick, while we're on this subject of randomness, uh, tell me if you like this idea or not.
Okay.
A a bard, right?
A bard.
But before they start singing, like whenever they go to do a performance, you have to roll on a on a table, and
Mhm.
whatever that roll is the genre of music you have to play
Oh, hell yeah.
for that
Absolutely.
performance. Because I just imagine a bard, like an elven bard, and you roll the
Yeah.
table, and it winds up as country.
Yeah, no, that would be so fun. And it would be like it would be fun to do like yeah, because then you could have like country, like rock, I don't know, blues. Like you could do a bunch of different things that would be like really, really fun.
That'd be so cool. Oh, what if there was like, okay, so with this table, with this hypothetical table, like each genre did something else to your performance?
Hmm. Oh yeah,
Like,
like maybe you got like different kinds of bonuses. Like oh
yeah,
you do a rock concert and maybe you can get everyone. Oh,
like
like you
pumped
could
up.
yeah, or you could like start uh like I know that they do like those mosh pits and stuff at like metal concerts. Like
Hmm.
maybe if you perform something metal, you could start like a actual like bar fight or something like that.
Oh,
And like do
yes.
like random and goofy little things like that. That would be really fun.
Oh, someone get on that. Someone on Kickstarter who's listening to this, get on that, please. That would be so cool. I'd be so down to play that class.
Yeah, the yeah.
I love me
Ooh.
a good bard. I'd be playing bards left and right if I wasn't so afraid of the social stigma that comes with playing a bard.
See, that's the thing. Like there's always like that this is what a bard is, seducing the dragon and all of that. But I think, like, a bard is whatever you want to play. A bard can be so many different things. And I feel like it's silly to, like, reduce it to, like, a bard only flirts with people and tries to, like, you know, get together with everyone that they see.
Hmm.
I think it's so much cooler to have, like, different bards. And I think that people should be afraid of playing bards because they're afraid of that, like, I guess a stereotype of them
Yeah.
when I have a bard right now in a game that I'm playing in, and they are actually a ballerina, and so their performances are through dance and stuff like that, and it's really really fun, and they're more just kind of like proud of their art, which is this dancing, and they don't really have any of those like generic, or I guess I shouldn't say generic, but common bard traits of like I'm gonna roll to seduce the dragon type
Hmm.
stuff, and I think it's great.
I think that's wonderful. I never even considered the idea of a bard being a ballerina, but
Yeah.
as long as your character is performing the arts, I would say, I mean, that's pretty much bard-like as you can get.
Exactly. I mean, that's kind of the whole thing around the bards, and I think it's really cool to see what other interpretations people can come up with of the bard. I've know people have mentioned like doing poetry, like having poetry bards or artist bards where they actually like paint and stuff like that because it's still their like they can go and decide to set up and paint people in the street. Like that's still kind of a performance in itself and showing off this art.
Hmm.
And I see bards as being like, they're just super talented in these arts, and it can be so many different things that they could be talented in, and it's amazing.
I so in not to kind of like go back to the whole MMO role playing aspect, but still on the topic of bards, one of this really cool idea that I have seen explored before so people will set up fairs and stuff like that. Like people will
Hmm.
set up circuses or what have you. Basically, a place where role players can all gather up in a hub and play. Excuse me.
Yeah, no, that sounds really fun.
Yeah. And I remember this one person who would basically you would go up to this character and this player, while you guys are having like an in-character interaction, would be on their tablet doodling your character,
Oh
and
yeah.
then they would be reflecting that with the narration through the paragraph that you would be reading.
Hmm.
Uh, and then as you guys were done, they would hand you the slip of paper with your character on it, and then they would message you out of character and be like, "Hey, I actually drew your character for you while we were doing this. Can I send it to you? Do you have a place where you would feel comfortable with me sending you this little doodle that I just did of your character?"
That's so cool.
I know, right? Oh, God, he can be so creative in role playing.
Yeah. No, that's actually like really, really cool. And that's actually some of the best things of playing in. Okay. One of the best things with having an artist play a TTRPG with you is getting constant character art. and like not even just of their character, but they will do like other people's character. I know that my brother actually, he's in a bunch of my games and he always doodles as we play, and we'll always get like art dumps at the end of sessions of like little moments or just like little ideas that he had of the different characters, and it's so freaking cute. But
That's
like
so
it
cool.
I love it so much, and I love taking that aspect into like an actual game. And like, yeah, no, I actually did this. Like, I'm playing this character and stuff, but I actually did it, and like as a little surprise too. That's really cool.
So another thing, again on the same topic, I've seen before is and I would encourage anybody to do this. Just because someone is doing this doesn't mean you can't do it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think that's a huge that right there. Just because someone else is doing it doesn't mean you can't. Like that's what this whole thing is. People just share ideas usually, and like because one person plays a ballerina bar doesn't mean you can't. Like take that and make it your own. Sorry, I had very strong feelings there.
No, you're fine, and I completely agree. I just because like again, just because someone has an actual play podcast for Monster of the Week does not mean you cannot also have an actual play podcast for Monster of the Week. I know
Exactly.
two. I personally know two keepers who both run actual play podcasts, different ones, for the $2 creature feature and Nameless Monsters, who I talk to not on a daily basis, but still like I know them and I talk to them and I
Hmm.
communicate with them. They both know each other as well, and they got in
Yeah.
contact with each other because they both run a Nameless Monster podcast, or I'm sorry,
Yeah.
not a nameless, a Monster of the Week podcast. So
Yeah, I love that so much. Like I know several Monster of the Week podcasts too, and I know one host of a or not a host, a keeper of a Monster of the Week podcast listens to at least two or three other ones and like have
yeah,
sessions there because I mean, it's not even like it's ideas, but it's also like if you enjoy that genre and you enjoy that type of game and you enjoy those types of stories, why not consume all those other mediums? And then if you want to make your own because it's going to be different and it's going to be awesome.
yeah, I guarantee you, I will not be mad if another Monster of the Week podcast comes up. I will be happy to listen to it.
Mhm. Yeah, because Monster of the Week is great. Like it's a fantastic game. So
With that said, so one of the things I thought was another bard thing that I thought was really cool is like they were playing a bard in Cyberpunk. Like their
Mhm,
character was supposed to be like bard like.
mhm.
And what they would do is that they were interested in getting into music, specifically electronic music. So what they would
Yeah.
do at the end of the session, because their sessions were like 2 to 3 weeks apart, they
Mhm.
would come up with like some music that they felt fit the last session really good, or like, some music that would fit a character really good. And
That's
I
so
thought,
cool.
I know, I like blew my mind because I never had ever considered putting the two and two together.
Yeah.
But you can do so much when you're a role player. There's like for this other world that you're creating in your head, you have that is so much fuel for
Mhm.
creativity right then and there.
Absolutely. And especially if you have the creative means to do it, like that
Mm,
makes it even better. And honestly, it makes me miss playing in person games because something that I've been really wanting to do is make like physical like props for
hmm
like the games that I run because I love the idea of like being able to, in the game be like, "Hey, you are given this note," and actually hand them a note. Like
hmm
actually like creating physical like things, or not even physical, but creating things that are actually inspired by and like come from games is like the coolest idea to me. Like I just find it insanely fascinating and I just want more of it.
One of my personal favorite characters I've ever done is I had a character who was a gambler, right?
Mhm.
He wasn't good for much, all right, but he was great at gambling, let me tell you what. And he would walk up, like I would carry, speaking of props, I would carry like of course you have your dice, but I would
Mhm.
also have like a deck of cards or just some other stuff.
Yes.
And I'd be like, hey, I'll make a bet with you. And then like I'd reveal three cards and I'd be like, if the next card is higher or lower, then if this card is like in the middle between these cards, I win, and if it's
Mhm.
not, you win.
Yeah.
And my character would use this as like a distraction, so the other players could do what they need to do,
Love that so much.
and
Yes.
it would come into like all these different cool things, and then the GM would respond in kind when
Mhm.
they let me do this. And so like I'd fail it, and they'd be like, "All right, give me the gold," and I'd be like, "I don't have it," and then I'd run away.
Well, I hope you guys don't mind me interrupting right quick with this week's midroll. For this week's midroll, I figured I'd go ahead and just roll the RPG Goblins. And if you're a podcaster, if you're someone who likes role playing and you're someone who likes talking about these sort of things, then please reach out to me and give me a small tidbit of your podcast, a teaser, if you will. I think that's what they're called. Yes, teasers. And I'll be happy to add it to the midroll. Again, I really appreciate you guys listening, and I'm sure Willow could agree too.
Welcome to the RPG Goblin, a podcast that makes exploring TTRPGs fun and easy for you. My goal is to be the best resource for exploring and learning new TTRPGs, no matter if you're a veteran player, have only played D&D, or you're just getting into the hobby. My name is Willow, and I am the host of the RPG Goblin, and I am obsessed with TTRPGs to the point that I would talk about them so much that I drove my mom crazy, and she told me to start a podcast, so I did. On the RPG Goblin, I sit down with guests and we delve deep into TTRPGs like Pathfinder, Monster of the Week, and Wanderhome, and we do the hard work of finding the games and breaking them down for you so that all you have to do is listen to an episode and find your new favorite game. Along with exploring games, we also discuss different TTRPG topics that help you improve your own games at home. So if you want to find your new favorite game, or you just want to switch up from playing D&D, then listen to the RPG Goblin wherever you find your podcasts. So good. I love that so much. And again, just having that real world element of actually having the cards and doing it just like brings you like it like immerses you so much more into the game, because it's like, it's actually there. We are playing this game, and I think that's so cool, and that's such a good like just character idea in general as well, like having like a gambler and just to like distracted and run away because you don't got the money.
Yeah, he was really bad at fighting. But he was very charismatic. Like that was his whole shtick. He was incredibly charismatic. I wanted to build that southern gambler. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, kind of. Yeah.
And I went into this with this. It was so much fun. What I'm trying to say is, again, so much stuff you can do for role playing. Props, art, music, it doesn't matter. You can have so much fun, whether you're doing tabletops or MMO or cosplay or whatever. There's so much fun to be had in the roleplay community.
Oh, for sure. Actually, now that you mentioned it, cosplay, when I was in a in-person game, like, I don't know, 5 years ago-ish. That's crazy that it's been that long. There was actually a masquerade, or not a masquerade, there was a ball that we were going to, like this big ball formal event all our characters were going to. And because I was actually super into sewing and cosplay and stuff like that at the time, I decided to design my character an outfit and then actually make that outfit in real life. And when we had the session where we went to this ball event, I actually wore that outfit to the session and to like show it off to everyone. It's like, oh yeah, this is actually what my character is wearing. And like that was a really, really fun time of actually like, creating something from a game, because I'm not super big at like drawing it or stuff like that. So that felt like that was a really fun, like personal connection for me of like, I really enjoyed doing this craft, and I was able to actually make this memento to my character. And it was so freaking cool.
Yeah, that sounds really awesome. I love that idea. I love that idea so much.
It was great. I think I still have the outfit, but it's like somewhere in storage because it's just been moving in shenanigans and whatever. We don't think about that.
No, I don't blame you. I don't think about moving either. But I am curious, how did you get into role playing in the first place?
Yeah, so this is actually a interesting question, because for me, I was pretty much like not into role playing at all. Before I got into D&D, which was my first role playing experience, like that's how I got into it, was through D&D. I went to a public game because my brother was going, and so okay, I'm gonna try this out, see if it's fun. I got really addicted to it. I thought it was great. It was really fun, and then it's all been downhill since then. No, it hasn't been downhill. But like to actually get into roleplay, it was through D&D. But before that, I wasn't really into it at all. It was not anything I did. I know my brother did a bunch of it, like online forum type stuff. But that was actually one of my biggest struggles, though, when I actually did get into D&D, was the roleplay aspect. Because I was like pretty much unfamiliar with this world. I didn't really know what it meant to roleplay a character. And so when I got into D&D, I got like the game down, but the actual role playing of characters, it took me a few years actually to get like comfortable doing that. But it was introduced through D&D for me.
What version? 4.0? 3.5?
5th edition. So this was
yeah.
Yeah, this was around 7 years ago, I want to say. I think I started when I was around 13, 14.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I believe that's right. 5th edition was where I started, and then from there, I've actually played no other editions of D&D, but I've played quite a few other games since then. Since I love D&D, but there's also a lot of other games that I love, and I'm a bit more obsessed with. So I've been playing more of those recently.
I don't blame you. There's a lot of games that I feel, in my opinion specifically, that are just I would much rather be playing something else other than D&D. I like
Yeah.
D&D.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I love D&D, but I have so many games I want to play.
Exactly. Like I have a full shelf behind me, like at least 30 different games on my shelf. Like
I'm looking at mine right now.
And I'm not
Okay.
even going to talk about the Google Drive. Like we don't talk about that because there's
God,
too
yeah,
many in there.
I
Too
see,
many
like,
itch bundles.
I see. I love like one page tabletops, so I always like because they're often just given to free. I still try to donate money to them, and I've spent so much money, and I have just this folder. It's called my one shot folder, and it's just filled to the brim with one shots I have never fucking played. Never touched them, and I'm so.
God, I feel that. Yeah, I have probably, including my Google Drive, probably over 200 games if I include the Google Drive. This is just a guess. Like I feel like it should be around that much. And I've only played like, oh man, Monster of the Week, Kids on Brooms, Glitter Hearts, Honey Heist, definitely Wizards. Basically 5 other games. I've only played 5 other non-D&D TTRPGs when I have like around 200 that I own.
Oh, Kickstarter doesn't fucking help. Kickstarter does not help us.
No. It does not. Kickstarter and freaking backer kit or whatever. No, it does not help. There are so many games that I'm still waiting to arrive for me. I have this one that I've been obsessed with for forever. It actually I think is in printing right now, which I'm really excited for, which means that it's probably soon that I'll actually get it. Called Land of Eam, where it's Lord of the Rings meets the Muppets. And
oh my god, what?
It is the most insane game in
What is
like
this
the
called?
best Land of Eam, EEM. It is beautiful. It's one of my favorite just like PDFs to open up on my phone and just look at. Like, okay, I'm just gonna look at all these random encounters. And like you can play like skeletons and like these little goo guys and like these bird people and like almost like kind of these Muppet type styled people as well. And there's like whales and frogs, like all this stuff that you can play, and like it's basically a whole thing on going on quests, but it's like really goofy and fun and lighthearted and like literally my biggest obsession.
This is why I had to get Kickstarter off of my phone. This is why I had to remove Kickstarter from my phone, because of this game right here.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. I couldn't recommend it enough. I haven't played it, which is a crime, because I've been talking about it for like a year now, because it's been about a year since the backer kit came out for it originally. And And like I have been on the edge of my seat, like when's it gonna actually arrive? When am I gonna get the physical book so I can actually like hold it in my hand and be like, this is the game that I am gonna play forever? Because that's how I feel towards it. Like it's like this feels like the perfect match for me. Like it is the perfect amount of goofy and ridiculous, and the mechanics and like the way the game functions just like really resonates with me. And oh my god, I can't wait for it. Like I just got really excited about it now.
I get you because I've been a big fan of Avatar for
Mhm.
ever since I was a kid,
Oh yeah.
and I kickstarted, I backed and kickstarted, I backed the highest tier Kickstarter I could for
Mhm.
the Avatar game, and
Mhm.
I have everything, and it's beautiful, and it's sitting up on my shelf, and I will never get to play it, and I'm very sad
No,
about that
we
because
need we need to get you to play it. Like we need this. Yes.
I want to play it so bad because I love everything about the Avatar world. I think it's
Mhm.
so much fun. I think it's so cool. I often go back and watch Avatar, The
Yeah.
Last Airbender, and I've been trying to get my son to watch it, but he's not quite at that age where he enjoys that stuff yet, but
Mhm.
he sort of is. So I've been desperate to to fill my life with that board game. And really, I'm pretty sure I'm honestly just making this community not because I really, really want to help, but because I just want to play Avatar, and then maybe
Yeah.
I'll get enough people to play Avatar someday.
Exactly. It's just meeting more people so that they can play the game with you. That's the whole idea around this. Like,
That's what I actually want deep down. Like, yes, my goal is to help people, but really, maybe
but
I can get
really,
3 other people to play this game with me.
I mean, I would be down to play. I don't have the Avatar RPG myself, because I didn't end up backing it. But I've heard really fun things about it. I have the like free RPG day like quick start of it, and it looks really good. So like, I would be down.
I love the. Anyways, we're gonna keep on that topic, and I'm gonna keep crying until it happens. Anyways, so what I know that in your promo you talk about how your mom was like, if you love tabletop so much, why don't you just make a podcast? And then
Yeah.
you did. Is that really how you got into making podcasts about tabletops?
Yes, it is. So it
Ah,
all it
it is
it
real.
yeah, it is. So, all right, here's the story behind it. Um so I currently live in Florida, but I'm originally from Ohio, and so during the summer, not but last year, we were going up to see family and be able to do all that stuff. And when we were coming back down, I was just it was that was actually around the time that like Land of Eam came out, and like there was a bunch of other Kickstarters I was really obsessed with, and so pretty much all that I would talk about were these games. I would just talk about TTRPGs pretty much 24/7.
Mhm.
And so when we were in the car, we were all, driving back down to Florida, and we were all in the car together, and like I just would not shut up about these games. And finally my mom's like, "Okay, I love you. I think this is great. I'm glad that you love these games. But I need you to start a podcast because I can't do this." She's like, I can't. And I'm like, honestly, fair enough. But like that actually got me thinking, like, oh wait, that's actually a good idea. Yeah, maybe I should start a podcast. And so that is why I started the RPG Goblin, is because my mom pretty much said, I'm done with you talking about TRPGs.
I'm so glad that basically both of our podcast origin stories are us annoying people to the point that they just don't want to listen to us anymore. So we have to branch out and speak to other people
Gotta speak to people who want to talk to you.
about it. I know. And people can listen if they want to listen. Just
Exactly. Like I just want to talk about these games. Like it's awesome if I can help people in the process. And I mean that's part of the thing though, is like when I did, want to start the podcast, yes, I wanted to talk to people, but I did have such a genuine love for these games, and I had a like I I have played in plenty of D&D games, and around the time that I started the podcast was close to when I started to play like Monster of the Week and some other stuff, or I didn't quite play it yet, but I was getting close to that. But I was finding out how much I love these other games compared to D&D, how much easier it was for me to get into these other games than D&D, and like how they connected more than D&D did. Because like I'm not a super big fan of like high fantasy and stuff like that. And so, you know, with my own experience of like the relief that I had of actually like learning these other games that I could play that connected with me more, I did want to start a podcast that helped people with that same thing. I wanted to help people find games that were actually going to fit them instead of just like settling for the one big game everyone knows because they don't know what else is out there. And so, like, yeah, I mean, it was to talk to people, but also I did really like, I shouldn't say I did because I still do. I want to help people find the game that's like right for them. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
And that's so crazy about like that's again the same reason why I started the podcast is I want to talk to people because I want to help the role playing community, and I
Hmm.
feel like talking with people in the community itself is the best way to begin that process. So here
Exactly.
here I am.
Yeah.
And oh, speaking of, I did hear you play one game. I listened to you play the Cottage and Cerberus. Is it Cerberus and
Oh,
Cottages? Cottages and Cerberus.
cottages and services. Yeah.
Yeah, and Cerberus. And y'all guys sounded like over on the roleplay rejects,
Love
and
them.
you sounded like you had so much fun with the game.
Oh my God, that was really fun. Oh, yeah, I
It
did.
sounded fun.
I forgot to add those onto my list. I sometimes only think about the games that I've played of the games that I've run, and I forget
Hmm.
that like I've played as a player in some other games. But oh
Hmm.
my God, that game was so much fun. I actually the cool thing about that is the fact that the creator of Cottages and Services, Chris, actually contacted Roleplay Rejects because of my Discord server. They met through that because Damien from Roleplay Rejects did like a whole introduction of like what their show is, you know, how they like try all these different games and stuff. And Chris reached out and was like, "Hey, would you be willing to do like a mini series if I basically provided the game for you?" And I was invited, and it was like the best thing ever. It was so much fun. I love that game, and I also backed it on Kickstarter, and I'm excited for it to come out. Like, come to
See,
me.
we only grow when we come together. There's no
Exactly.
downside of this. That's so cool. That's so cool. I'm gonna bug later on, like literally later tonight. I'm gonna go talk. Damien and I are gonna play a game called Zomboid, and I'm gonna
Ooh,
bug him
yeah,
about it. I know your secrets. I know how this happened. Me. Well, now I guess everyone does if they're listening to this.
exactly. No, but like that was actually something that like I was really excited about. I mean, just like the connection of people within a
Hmm.
community I'm creating made me like really proud and like excited like oh my God, this is actually like a real thing, but also to then be invited onto Roleplay Rejects to play it with them was super awesome, and like just the relationship building that's been happening, like I it means so much. Like I think it's one of my favorite things of getting into this community is getting to meet all these people and forming these relationships and just like I don't know, I just think it's amazing. I love it so
It
much.
it feels great, doesn't it?
It
Like
does.
now you have friends. Now you
Yeah.
have something you guys can chat about and talk about. Matter of fact, Chris, I know them by their Discord name, but Chris is actually going to be coming on this podcast later on.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
uh, and we're going to be talking about because I backed their stuff
Mhm.
and I have to make some stuff for the game. So I because that was the tier that I backed it at, and
Mhm.
so we're gonna do like half of it about Chris and how they came into the role playing community and how they came into the role play hobby in general, and then the other
Mhm.
half of it is going to be about making the items to help get more. Hopefully, this will get more people interested in the game, which you should be if you're listening to this,
Oh yes, you
and
should.
then go buy it, which you should if you're listening to this.
It's so good. Like seriously, I have played, I haven't played, a million TTRPGs yet. So like but I've read a bunch and I've experienced a bunch through listening to actual play shows and watching people play these games. And like this game was seriously so much fun. Like to like I expected to love it. Like even when I heard about it, I had Chris on my show at first, like hearing about the game, like I thought it was so cool and it was really cute and like I knew that I would like it, but I loved it so much more than I even thought I would when I actually played it. It's so simple, it's so fun, and like actually like going on these little like hunts were really fun, and the combat was like fast and quick, which was a great change of pace from like D&D. Like I am thoroughly obsessed with the game. It's really really good. So yeah, please go get it. I
And if
believe
you're
they're opening
on
up pre-orders soon.
and if you're
Excuse me.
on the fence about this and you want to listen to somebody play it first, go over to Roleplay Rechecks. Listen to the episodes. Cottages and Cerberus, they have 6 episodes. Willow is on it. And
It's really great. You
Then
can
go-
learn about the berry trading fairies.
absolutely, links provided down below. Hell yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I did also do an episode on cottages and services. So if you're even interested in like the creation of the game and some of the ideas and the inspiration behind it, we cover a lot of that in my episode that we did on the RPG Goblin. But no, I think if you are interested in the game and you're on the fence, yeah, listen to the Roleplay Reject actual play because it is so good. Like seriously. And this isn't just me being biased because even the group was amazing. Like it's like the rejects were awesome. They're
They
a great
are
group.
awesome. They are awesome. They are so cool. I'm thrilled they even took a chance on me because I don't know if I ever obviously because we haven't spoken much before today, but I have been it has been very clear that I am very bad about reaching out to people and I'm very awkward about it. And
Mhm.
Damien was one of those people I awkwardly reached out to when I started doing all this to begin with.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that I'm friends with them now. Like I'm so happy.
Yeah, Damien's great. Like he was who I originally reached out to and spoke to first because he actually came on to the show to talk about stealing from TTRPGs, which again, great episode.
It was a good episode.
Like he's awesome, and I hope to work with them more in the future too because they are just a fantastic group and they have a great show too, especially because like I'm a huge advocate for, of course, like playing different games other than D&D, and they're like kind of a sister show where they like test out all these awesome games. So it's like
Yeah.
go watch them get played.
And that is then and everybody, that's a whole hour of the Damien fan show.
Exactly.
Join me next Thursday when we talk more about Damien. Anyways, we're coming up on that hour mark real fast. Man,
crazy.
normally this has been really delightful. So
Yeah, it
normally
has been.
I have like a dozen questions I put to the side just to
Mhm.
kind of get the ball rolling, and I've only had to use like one of those questions. So this has been just a delight.
Yes, it has. Like seriously, thank you for like bringing me on. This is awesome.
Really quick before you go, so one
Mhm.
of the things I like to ask people is, do you have any advice for people getting into people in the role playing community or getting into the role playing community, just in general, for anybody who is interested in role playing? Do you happen to have any advice that you think they should have?
Ooh, this is a great question. Um, I I think for me, some of the advice that I would give, and from my personal experience of how it was like pretty difficult for me to really get into role play, it was something that didn't come easy to me, and a big part of that is because it like I felt kind of embarrassed sometimes, and I think my big piece of advice is if you're struggling with the role playing aspects of um, role playing games, specifically TTRPGs. This is going to be aimed for TTRPGs. Is try not to take it too seriously. It's okay to be ridiculous, like, and don't like get into your own head about it because everyone's sitting around this table to have fun, play a game, and do ridiculous voices and just have a fun time. And, being worried about how you're going to, perform compared to all the other people who are role playing, that's not something you should be worried about because the main thing of these games is to have fun. And so, I guess that piece of advice, just have fun with it. Don't get too stuck in your own head. And also just take opportunities to play and try new things and stuff like that. because I think that's the best way to get more comfortable with role playing, just by doing it. So take that opportunity to play in a new game and role play a character and see what happens and learn from it. And over time, you'll improve more and more.
Hell yeah, that was great. I love that. Again, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this was a super fun blast. I haven't done too many interviews where I'm like on, or I guess, I mean, this is an interview question, like quote unquote, but also like a chat.
Right.
But I haven't like come on as the kind of guest on too many shows. So this was really, really fun to do.
It's weird, right?
It's like, I don't know what to do in this position.
You're not asking the questions. I am.
I know it's strange, but really fun. So I don't mind.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much again for inviting me. This was great. And if you're ever, wanting to chat again, or even if you want to maybe talk about a game on my show or anything like that, just let me know.
I'm going to talk about Avatar. I've read the book so much.
Yes, see, that would be awesome. I like Avatar's been one that I've wanted to get into and have on the show. I mean, there's like so many games I want to have on the show, and it all comes down to finding people to talk about them with. Like,
actually, I don't know if I would talk about Avatar. I might, if I did come onto your show, I would probably talk about the rune system. And
ooh.
so, do you know much about the solo tabletop role playing games?
Oh, is it ruined by Gila
Spencer Campbell, yeah. By
yeah,
Gila
yeah.
RPGs.
Actually, I do have an episode on that, but I would love to do another one, especially if you've played before, because the episode.
I have it right here. I play it. It's one of the only things I really get to do in my off time. Like when it's quiet and where I live, that's like the only chance I get to do it, because it's just me, and my son, and we're living with my friends currently, and I don't get a lot of time to role play. But when it's super quiet and I have nothing, I'm all caught up on my edits. I'm all caught up on my everything. It's nice just to be able to take it, sit down, and just drink a cup of coffee in the morning and
Yes.
just role play it. Like even before work, like just as a way to like wake up and get my mind going. Anyways, I'm not gonna start
solo
that.
games are great for that. No, I mean, if you would be down, I would love to do another episode on that, because the episode that I did was with a friend. And it was still pretty early on in the show, and he got super inspired by the system, but he actually never played it. So we talked mostly about the game, but not really experience with it. And so if you would love to do that, just let me know, because that would be awesome.
I will talk so much about it, because I've been a big fan of Spencer Campbell since he tried to release one game and it didn't make it, but I've been watching his work closely ever since then, and I got just hooked into Rune when it came out.
Yeah, no, Rune's awesome.
I love Rune so much. Like, so there are people that I want on this podcast, right? Spencer Campbell is definitely one of them. I have not reached out to Spencer Campbell yet. So Spencer, if you hear this, please come on to my podcast. Come on to my podcast and go on Willow's podcast.
Yes.
And you, listener, go listen to Willow's podcast.
Yeah.
The RPG Goblin. Links down below.
Goblin. Woo. Yeah, I mean, if you just want to, like, if you like chats, like, I mean, if you like Mr. Island's podcast, I mean, seriously though, if you like this podcast and you like just like fun chats, and you want to learn about new games, that's just what my podcast is. Really fun chats while we're talking about awesome games and just completely nerding out. It's fantastic.
Bum ba da dum. And that's really it this week, guys. I can't tell you enough how much we appreciate that you listen to us. And again, I say us because it's not just me here. There are so many out there. You have the Roleplay Rejects, you have Monster of the Week, you have Nameless Monsters, you have so many podcasters out there who just love telling stories and love talking about this awesome and crazy hobby that we all share. And on their behalf and my behalf, I just want to say thank you. Is that the right way to say that? On my behalf? You know what I mean. Thank you so much. As always, I appreciate the people who donate to the Patreon, and if you too would like to donate to the Patreon, links down below. $1 goes a long way, believe it or not. Oh, and thank you again, Kate Mcgee, for being a Master at Arms patron. I really appreciate you. I appreciate anybody who listens. Anyways, it's late. I'm going to bed. Good night. I'll see you next Monday.